Hey everyone. Okay, so one thing I really liked about this chapter is how it kind of establishes the dynamic that Dragon has with Luffy, and how it does parallel with Kuma's situation in that ultimately both Kuma and Dragon are fathers who do in fact want to be with their children. They want to be there for Luffy, for Bonney, but because of their standing in the world, they are forced to just watch them from afar. And I know it's going to be very easy to paint Dragon as a deadbeat father after this chapter, especially in comparison to Kuma, who at the very least made a genuine attempt to keep in contact with Bonney, where Dragon only ever just watched Luffy's growth from afar. But I think Dragon's one line about children being a vulnerability for a parent does in its own way kind of speak volumes about Dragon's motivation for keeping his distance from Luffy, which is to say, I think with Dragon, like compared to so many others who have carried the moniker, I think something about Dragon's will of D compelled him, screamed at him to oppose the government. From the very moment he was like, I think Dragon at one point he tried to live by the rules of the law. He tried to live a peaceful life, and in the hopes that he could just live as a father. He could live as with just a family like everyone else does in this world. But I think ultimately there was pretty much an inciting incident that basically like screamed at him, compelled him to oppose the government. And I think more than anything, this chapter did push on the idea that the driving force of Dragon becoming this revolutionary figure was Luffy's mother. And whatever happened to his wife, he just didn't want to see this. He just didn't want to see the same thing happen to Luffy. So he did the only thing he could, which is distance himself from Luffy in order to become the person that his will of D compelled him to be. Now, I guess you could say that ship kind of sailed the moment Luffy decided to become a pirate, but I think at least in his mind, Dragon keeping his distance allowed Luffy to live longer than he probably would have had the government known about the connection between the two of them. Which, yeah, on that note, I can't lie. If there's one problem I do have with this chapter, it's that once again, this feels like another instance of Oda kind of sidestepping the idea of showing us something in regards to Luffy's mother, even if it's just a teaser. Like, it feels like this would have been one of the perfect chapters to kind of delve at least a little bit in, like show us something in regards to into a little bit of a glimpse into who Luffy's mother was. I think that this could have been the chapter to do that, but again, for some reason, Oda's just not doing that. Again, I'm sure there are reasons for that. I'm sure Oda has an idea of why is like that time and place thing again, but it's like I feel like this would have been a good time to kind of at least tease out Luffy's mother. On that note, though, the rest of the chapter is really just showing us the events that lead up to Bonney going out to sea and becoming a pirate, which in itself kind of exposes that, yeah, I don't think the government was ever planning to let her go even after Kuma had become a full cyborg. Like, during the process of Kuma's transition, I think they were just holding her as a bargaining chip, but after the fact, I imagine the two routes that this was going to go was either keep Bonney a prisoner or kill her. And I tend to lean more towards the latter, just based off the context of this chapter and this whole backstory, and how, when you really think about it, like, Bonney is the princess of Sorbet Kingdom. So because of that, I think just by nature whether she became a pirate or not, I think she is a threat to the government's hold over Sorbet Kingdom in itself. And the nurse bitch saying she'd subdue Bonney and bring her to justice, that to me says, like, again, the original plan was an off-the-books execution of sorts of maybe not only her, but also all of Sorbet Kingdom's royalty. But again, the plan went to shit when Bonney escaped, which I really like how Oda does take the time for us to see Bonney soaking it all in. That the moment she is fully cured, that she like soaks in the idea that she can go outside, that she can experience everything the outside world has to offer, and just seeing her elation at being able to like experience all that now that she's cured of sapphire scales, like it's just a very nice scene. Of course, it's also during the escape that we have Bonney that gave Bonney the idea for her distorted future techniques, which is to say, we learned that Bonnie was very heavily inspired by like her make how she enlarges herself. She was very heavily inspired by the stories Kuma told her about Nika, which in itself makes me wonder if she's gonna put two and two together in regards to Luffy's powers and that he is in fact the next Nika, as it were. I don't. It would be kind of cool to see how that dynamic would kind of shake out when she learns that. And yeah, I really like the idea that they used Connie's likeness to Bonnie as a means to help her escape, which does tie in pretty nicely to Bonnie using her old lady form in Marie Joie as like it shows. Yeah, it is a form of respect to the real Connie that ultimately saved her life. And yeah, I know I kind of already said this last week, but seriously, fuck the government, and especially the nurse bitch. Like, seriously, the fact that she wouldn't let Bonnie see any of Kuma's letters, even as a way of having something to remember him, really shows really shows in itself and is just further proof of how emotionally disconnected and morally bankrupt like the world government really is. And honestly, I think it just shows more and more I think it just shows more and more in present time how much harder it's becoming to keep the facade up that the world government is this benevolent organization. Like just the fact that Jay Garcia is there at all, like in itself shows the government is going like after this arc, the government is going to lose fucking control of everything in some one way or another. And I also like how we get to see how far Vegapunk had planned to create his utopia on Egghead, even to the point of places like Punk Hazard being trial runs for what Egghead would eventually become. Like, so yeah, it's kind of nice and yeah, but even more than that though, yeah, it is. We also get that thing with this chapter where supposedly the where we get to see we kind of get a little bit of context behind the whole thing of him losing his of Kuma losing his humanity, which is to say that Vegapunk made it to where Kuma would hold on to a little bit of his humanity up until the end. He would only lose his humanity very gradually, and only up until the very final moments would he fully become a mindless machine. And you can kind of, even from the very first moment even from just that flashback of the revolutionaries kind of going past Goa Kingdom, you can kind of see the wheels kind of turning already in his head about Luffy and when Kuma is finally told us of how the process is going to be, you can see how he eventually came to the conclusion of, okay, I'm going to use this final moments of my life in order to make sure that Dragon's Son and his comrades are strong enough in order to survive the dangers ahead. So you can kind of see how Kuma eventually came to the point of what happened on the archipelago of saving the Straw Hats. And and so, having said all that, I do admit, for as much as I've loved this stuff with Bonney and this whole backstory with Kuma, I will admit I am also getting to the point where I'm hoping we're nearing the end of this flashback because I really want to see what's happening in the present. Like, as cool as it is to get all this information, all this backstory, yeah, I do want to know what's going to happen what's happening with like Jay Garcia, all that shit. So, but yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. From on Twitter and all this Crunchyroll, be sure notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just shiver around, guys. Dark Knight signing off. Later, everyone.